Good evening and welcome to the scheduled meeting of the Milford School Committee. Today is Thursday, December 19th, 2024, and this meeting is being broadcast and recorded by Milford TV. Copies can be obtained at the request of this board or through central office. We'll start with announcements, correspondence, and distribution. You see there's none, and there's no one here for invitation to speak, so we'll get right to item 3, which is the general chairperson update. So there's a few things on here. With Dr. McIntyre out, I took on a few updates that came from this week's facilities meeting as well. We have links for the facilities maintenance plan and preventative maintenance program, and then also the facilities condition index. So the condition index, I'll start with that one. That's an Excel sheet chart type thing that has a lot of information about all the different buildings, the district, stuff like that. That data is probably on its third or fourth revision. That's what was used to compile the maintenance plan and preventative maintenance program document. That is still in draft form as well. Dr. McIntyre said we're looking for probably 1 or 2 more revisions before it has to be submitted, but we've had it for a little while. I hope everybody had a chance to review it and get through it. He's open to obviously recommendations, thoughts, comments, questions. I know some of it looks like it's cut short, or there's maybe not a ton of words in there. There is a character limit that he explained to us on the submission of this, so he has had to, on multiple occasions, I guess, wordsmith it down to fit inside what the submission requires. So if anybody has any comments or thoughts on that now, you can share them, or if you'd prefer, you can send them to me and I can compile and provide it to Kevin as well. Megan?
I just had one, Matt. So it seems that in some categories we're sort of classifying how we're rating it, like needs improvement or otherwise. In others, we're sort of just describing it. I was curious if we wanted to sort of apply some categorization across the board so it's very clear from looking at it. Like some of them say like original to building. To me, that assumes they're probably not doing well, but maybe if we would just layer on that categorization, it might make it very clear, sort of the current state.
Okay.
So just for consideration.
Which, you're talking about the
I'm just looking
maintenance
generally
plan?
across. So if you take, as an example, exterior and interior walls,
Which
right?
document are you on?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on the assessment itself of each of the buildings,
Okay.
where you go into the condition report, Matt.
Okay.
So when you start getting into the categories in terms of, core facilities, the plumbing, electrical, et cetera, in some cases we say adequate or needs improvement. In other cases, it just starts describing it. So I was thinking maybe we just adapt some categorization and apply that kind of across the board.
Okay.
And I'll be happy to write that in an email also.
Yeah, please.
I was going to say, to note, these 2 documents will be due on January 28th. The building committee will review those, I think, on January 9th. So,
That sounds right, yeah. Brandon, do you have something?
A couple things I'll send over to you, just minor changes or thoughts
Okay.
on changes.
Sure.
But certainly nothing pressing. Thank you.
Anyone else? Obviously, again, if something comes up past this, too, send it along. Yeah.
I just have a question. So in looking at this, I'm looking at just the ADA and accessibility. Do we know how this, just because I'm questioning if there's some additional areas of accessibility challenges that are not listed in the conditions as well?
Let me see if I can find some of these sections.
Robert, are you on page 6?
So I'm on that same conditions index, page 6, where it has ADA accessibility.
I think I'm looking at the wrong document here. Page 6. Okay.
So just for example, for the high school, it says route of travel within the building not requiring stairs, some ramps or steep elevator and lift available. That's not true to all parts of the high school. So that's just something like that I bring up.
Okay. Chris, when Dr. McIntyre was sharing this index with us, was the index itself being submitted, or is it just that first document? If I recall the conversation, I believe the index is the compilation of a lot of this information. And it's more of our running plan that was also
Yeah,
a maintenance schedule.
correct.
attached
This
to
is
it.
more of a supporting document.
Right.
To my understanding that, much like, you know, your typical submissions to the state, they're going to be at a particular format, right? So we have to adhere to that particular format. So we take the information that we have here and kind of extrapolate it from how we bring it all together and put it into their format. So yeah, it's more of a supporting document.
So it just sounds like there needs to be a bit more.
And I just think it's a good argument too for why we need, you know, improved facilities.
Oh, yeah.
There's certain
Sure.
areas, and I'm thinking more in like the gym area, like getting up to like the pool balcony, for instance. If you're in a wheelchair, it's
Yeah.
pretty impossible to get
Okay.
there. So, things like that.
Anything else? Yeah.
I guess the only question that I have, and this might actually be a better question for John, in the maintenance program and plan draft on page 11, the flow chart of personnel that's mentioned, for certain projects, I would imagine that there are permits that we have to obtain and then close out. Would it make any sense to put any other town personnel on that flow chart, or is it even necessary?
Which document are you in?
It's the
The
maintenance
last page on the,
It's page 11 on the maintenance program and plan draft.
It's numbered as 10.
Is it the spreadsheet one or?
Oh, it's numbered as 10, but it comes up as
okay,
11.
okay, no, that explains it, because it was on page 11.
Sorry. Yeah. Or do you think that doesn't really matter? 'Cause I just think of like occupancy for the
What?
addition at Brookside.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think that's in the normal maintenance, that's more of like a project. I mean, if you need whether you need a light fixture change, a toilet change, or you're doing an addition, it's up to whoever's contracting it. I mean, if it's
Okay.
in-house maintenance, we have annual maintenance permits for, at least for electrical work.
Okay.
Anything building-wise would require a permit, like they added or changed some doors upstairs over in this area, the media center. Recently, they get their permits for that, so I don't think that belongs in the
Okay.
flow chart of the in-house workflow.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, just a question on the maintenance program itself. It's fantastic to see this take shape and be in a document and be very tangible. So I thank to everyone. I know there's a lot of work that went involved. Is it the expectation that there will also be sort of supporting, you know, forms and checklists so that as the maintenance is done, it's evidenced?
Okay.
And maybe we don't want to go there right now, and that's fine. I'm happy to.
In a way, yes. When we were
Okay.
talking, that spreadsheet that we have now,
Mhm.
Kevin and Carlos did speak on versions down the road. Will have what major systems get checked on
Okay.
what date, stuff
Great.
like that.
Okay.
So will there be a checklist in terms of like something that they're running off of? Like, I don't know how they're going to use it.
Okay.
But it sounded like that's going to evolve to be more detailed of, you know, systems that need major belt changes annually and stuff like that.
Got it. Awesome.
No, yeah, good. No, all right. Okay, cool. So I'll take your recommendations also in email if you could, just so I make sure I captured on here while you're looking for all four of those along to Dr. McIntyre. Hopefully you can get those in before he brings it to the building committee. So while I'm saying building committee, I was just taking notes down that I received an email today from the MSBA. They're looking to schedule. I'm talking really slow while I try to open this email. So they did confirm yesterday, and I'll forward this along to you guys, that they acknowledged the completion of the enrollment submission. So that part was done. They're looking to schedule now the discussion, the first discussion, to go over those numbers. They sent out some dates. Melissa's trying to coordinate that with the people that are involved. So the ones on the email were select board members, myself, some administration, and the chair of the building committee. I'll find out if anyone else is allowed to be on that or necessary on that. But that's currently looking like it'll be the end of January. They threw out dates between the 22nd and the 30th. So that should be the first step, I believe, in how that goes in terms of confirming our numbers, right? All right.
Correct.
And then the last thing I have is something that I noticed. Tuesday night, I believe, which was, there was a discussion again about planned 40B units, but I'm gonna kick that one over to the person who was part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we had more at planning board on Tuesday night. We had two more referrals for 40Bs. One at, let's see, 21 Beaver Street for another 103 unit rental apartments, and then 52 units at 310 Fortune Boulevard. Planning board unanimously gave an unfavorable recommendation for those for various reasons on that. I think from our side of it, we also need to just continue to look at it from a enrollment impact. You know, we know that our enrollment continues to increase, but the space has not increased. So these types of rental apartments, although, you know, we know that space is very limited in and around Milford, it also, space is limited in and around the schools. So I think that we need to have a full understanding of how that is going to impact us. I think that it would be in the best interest that this committee also gives some type of recommendation, whether it's favorable or unfavorable. You know, from the planning board side, I was unfavorable. From the school committee side, I'm also feel like unfavorable, because again, there's just no more space in our classrooms, and the more residential facilities that we allow in the town, we just cannot increase our school capacity. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to permit the chair to send a letter of unfavorable support on the behalf of the school committee to the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding the multiple 40B housing applications proposed in Milford. So I don't know if it'll get read right into record. John might be able to say something on that, but at least it puts into context what we feel as a committee and how it's going to affect our school system. And I feel like the Zoning Board of Appeals members need to fully understand where we are and how we anticipate residential growth and how it would affect our school system.
Comments are open if anybody wants to talk on that, yeah.
Just a question, Chris, is your thought that sending something that just says unfavorable is more productive than sort of sending maybe something that's a little bit more comprehensive that sort of outlines the challenges?
100%.
Okay.
And with that, I would say with that letter, right, so with planning board, we say it's unfavorable based on these, list of items. So again, I think that it's, can work with Matt on that, but again, going through the chair and creating a letter that gives unfavorable and for some very specific reasons of why.
Got it, that's helpful, thanks,
Yep.
thanks, Matt.
Nothing else? All right,
So I would make a motion.
that's right. Thank you.
No
Would you
problem.
like to make your motion? Do you have a specific one?
So that is, yeah, a motion to permit the chair to send a letter of unfavorable support on behalf of the Milford School Committee to the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding the multiple 40B housing applications proposed in Milford, with a list of reasons of why it would have a negative impact on the school system.
Excellent, thank
regarding
you.
space.
Motion by Chris. Is there a second? Second by Megan. All in favor?
I'm going to abstain, in part because of my
Okay.
Excellent. So
full-time
that is
role.
5 in favor, and John abstains. And that motion is very nicely written down. Can you just give her that document for her notes later?
Okay.
Thank you.
One.
All right, thank you very much for all of that. That moves us on now to the EL program update.
Hello. Thank you for having me this evening.
Thanks for coming.
I know that you all have the slides in front of you and that they've been shared with you. As I do every year, I plan to go over some data with you and what's currently happening in the English Learner Department here in Milford Public Schools, provide you some highlights and have the opportunity to have discussion with you and answer any questions you may have. If you look at the slide on our total EL pre-K to 12 population, you can see an increase from 1,474 English learners in school year 23-24, according to the October 1st SIMS data. The October 1st SIMS data is not yet public on school profiles, DESE school profiles, so I just want to let you know that this is the data that I have as of December 16th, 2024. I'm thinking maybe next year last year I came in January and that data was already live. So maybe that's probably next year a better time to schedule the meeting, just so that I have the most public data for you. On the next slide, you'll see that there has been an increase. With that increase in students, overall students, there's an increase at each school. Majority of the time still staying consistent at Memorial Elementary School, but also at the high school has seen the two largest increases this school year. And so both of those schools by percentage. The following slide will show you a distribution of our English learner student population by grade level. The majority of the concentration happening K4, and then there being a decrease because our students are reclassifying, which goes in alignment with English language development acquisition. The following slide will show you where our students are at in their current English language proficiency level. Of our 1,588, the majority of them are at the level 1-2 foundational English language proficiencies. Below that is where the English proficiency is for each school by level. And so you can see that at Memorial and Brookside, according to their numbers at their school, they have the largest level of students at an English language proficiency level 1. It's our students coming from majority of the time being spent at home from K to 5 before starting kindergarten in their primary language. The following slide is just a reminder that our students reclassify when they meet a 4.2 overall composite score and a 3.9 on their literacy. That then moves us to our FEL monitoring. We have, in addition to those 1,588 students who are currently designated as English learners, we have 433 students who we're overseeing for our former English learners that we're monitoring by compliance for 4 years to make sure that they're making progress in their academic courses with no longer providing ELD services. Our following slide is going to take our English learners and our current FELs, which is 2,021 students, and breaking that down by their home language. The majority of the students that we see in our English learner department being overseen in our English language department are Brazilian Portuguese speaking households, then Spanish, and then Haitian Creole, and Arabic, and other. The next few slides, like I said, are not yet up to with SIMS data. But we are seeing, of course, as our English learner student population increases, that percentage is increasing faster than the percentage growth of our total student population. And as that continues to happen, that also means our first language, not English, percentage will continue to increase. And you'll see that over the next couple slides. And then specifically paying attention to that last year when I was here, I was telling you it's the first year we hit over 50% of our families have a home language other than English. And that meant last year, 1 of every 2 families needed an interpreter and went through the Family Resource Center Translation and Interpretation Department for communication. We obviously have like talking points and other tools, communication tools that we've been utilizing, but for the most part, our Family Resource Center is being utilized to capacity. The following slide you'll see for labeled Access for English Learners 2.0. I wanted to share with the school committee and in the town that of the 11 similar districts in our DART data from the Department of Education, we are performing the second highest in the state for growth around of our English learners making progress in attainment for English language development, and that's something to be very proud of. So I just wanted to make sure that you see that highlight of the progress our students are making. The next slide is on our English learner education tiered focus monitoring. Last year, we went, in 22-23, we went through a self-assessment, was to complete all of these documents in preparation for DESE's audit. When DESE came in and did site visits last year in February, they did classroom observations, they interviewed principals, teachers, the interpretation and translation coordinator, parents, guardians, our MPAC, students, it's student groups. After their visit, they gave us a finding, which is on DESE's website. It's a public document. It's linked into the slides. This is the report that we were provided. We were asked to submit 4 times a year, September 30th, today, March 26th, and June 25th. Progress toward meeting those action items that were listed around ELE 5, 7, and 14. 5 is on our instruction and curriculum. 7 is on translation and interpretation. And 14 is on our teachers' licensure. And so we've been making continuous progress on that. And so we're still working. We'll be working through the end of the year to meet all of the Department of Education's deadlines. Part of that, on the next slide, you'll see that, and also provided to you in a separate link, I think within your agenda, you'll see that the English Learner Department creates a sustainable improvement plan. We've been now doing this for 3 years. It's an alignment how schools submit school improvement plans, an alignment with our strategic plan, district strategic plan. Our EL department creates an EL improvement plan. This one has been aligned for just 1 year because we are specifically targeting goals that were listed in our ELETFM continuous improvement plan. So a majority of what we're working on, you'll see in the strategic objectives, 1 through 10 are aligned specifically with action items and tasks to complete for our tiered focus monitoring. And then 11 is our fun sweet spot of the dual language program implementation and our plan around implementing that this coming September. Which brings me to the next slide on our Multilingual Parent Advisory Council. These are our 4 dates. We met in October. When we came in October, we had over 150 family people in the media center. We tried to do it in here, and that was not like, I know Matt and Megan were able to attend one of our MPAC meetings last year, and we were crammed in this room. We were now crammed in the media center. Awesome. So we're still expanding and growing. January, March, and May, one of those meetings will also be to invite school committee members to attend. Though the date has not yet been decided, we will have an MPAC steering committee. There are 7 parents that are on the steering committee that help facilitate the topics of conversation at our MPAC meetings. When we have that at the beginning of January, they'll decide the topics for the remainder 3 meetings, and then I'll send an invite out to the committee if you would like to attend one of those 3 meetings. But you may want to mark those 3 dates on your calendar just in case. You're always welcome to attend any of them, but we'll send a specific invite for the date that's chosen for inviting school committee members. Some highlights. I wanted to tell you that we signed an agreement with UMass Boston for 16 staff members to get a certificate, which is in either English language development or dual language programming. And that started this semester. The course UMass comes out here, professor from UMass Boston comes here. At the high school, 16 members across all schools are getting the half of a master's program to work with our English learners or become to obtain their dual language certificate. And then I linked the CREATE website so you can see more information on how Milford Public Schools is highlighted on UMass's website and their National Professional Development Grant. The dual language program is another highlight. We're on track to begin in September. Julia Latino, who is our Assistant Director of Multilingual and Dual Language Programming, she will be here on February 27th to speak to the school committee. specifically about giving a full update and a completed timeline for implementation for September. On the next slide, you'll see that as far as for translation and interpretation, last year, Juliana Middlecote, who's our translation and interpretation coordinator, and myself, we applied to the Department of Education to be a provider of interpreters in the education setting. We took a semester course and are a state provider of this course, and we're the only school district in the state of Massachusetts who applied, and we're the only school district who can do this. The other are 3 vendors, interpretation vendors. We're offering the first course from January 9th through April 3rd, where we have 11 current employees and 4 of our consistent local vendors that we use locally to get their Tier 2 certification, which is now a new legal requirement by the state to say that we have qualified licensed interpreters during parent conferences, talking about like higher level academic settings, and we're providing that service to our families. And then you'll see some highlights from our schools where we're working on curriculum development. Our students are making progress. There's PD happening around co-teaching. There's a new pilot we're doing at Summit K-12 on our students' progress monitoring. It's very similar to iReady in the ELA department, but this is specific to English language development. So lots of things I just threw at you, and I'd love to answer any questions or hear any comments.
Anyone? Megan?
Jen, is the CREATE program what will essentially help fund our dual language programming as those students progress? Is that?
So the CREATE program is for teacher licensure and training. So there are educators in the district that are seeking their dual language certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will help assist current staff be able to teach within the dual language
Got it,
program.
exactly, and that, okay,
Yeah.
excellent, that's what I was
Yes.
wondering, thanks. And then just while you're here, obviously, you know, numbers continue to grow, I think it's been a theme, not a surprise.
Yes.
Anything from a budgetary standpoint that we should be kind of looking out for as we kind of kick off that season, just in terms of needs that you may be starting to identify?
Yeah, so 2 areas that I meet with all the principals, and so there are different asks at different buildings, and I know that central office is looking at those asks to then bring them to you. But specifically, we're really looking at Woodland is a priority for us right now. We're out of compliance. We're providing some of our ELD services with a TA. That number has grown, but not just grown. We have students in different programming, which create scheduling concerns. We have many more students entering our school system who may be dually identified as English learners, and specifically students who are in sub-separate programming in our Milestones program, and we really need to make sure that we're giving adequate English language development instruction to all of our students. And so because of the different programs where our students fit in, we need an additional EL teacher to serve them across different classrooms. So that is an ask. Another area is we're looking for a halftime kindergarten teacher at each school to do halftime at Memorial, halftime at Brookside, specifically working with our English learners who are entering kindergarten with a rescreen or a refer on their early screening inventory, to make sure that when we're placing them in the multi-tiered systems of support or MTSS process, we're really making sure that we're differentiating between school experience, language development, versus students coming in and possibly getting a refer to special education where it's really just that they have not yet had experience in the educational setting. And so we really want to make sure that we have a KEL teacher that can be focusing on some really directed instruction to minimize that over-identification of special education services.
That's super helpful, thank you.
And so those are the 2 positions that I'm really looking to you all for support.
That's right, thank you. We'll read it on paper, but it's helpful to just hear the context of the
Yeah,
news.
thank you.
Robin, I'm gonna put you on the spot. A while back, you asked, and I noted this down, about the impact that newcomers have on staff in classrooms. Is this the forum for that?
Yeah, so like having So, you know, one of the questions too, I had looking at this, which is kind of a little bit different than that. So we're looking at the languages we have in our schools, and a high proportion of students do not have English as the first language at home. What proportion of our staff speak multiple languages? Do we have any sense of that?
I don't know the percentage, so like proportion, the percentage. I do have a list of staff that are bilingual.
Okay.
However, there's no, when we hire in our human resource department inputs staff into X2, there's no field currently in X2 that indicates whether a staff member is bilingual or not and which language. We have that field for students, we do not have that field for staff. And then a few moments ago, I was mentioning how we're leading PD on different tiers of bilingual for interpretation. So the state has come up with definitions similar to medical interpretation certificates and legal court interpretation certificates. There's now educational certificates. With that, individual interpreters and staff members have to prove their proficiency in the target language, right? So we can't just say that I'm bilingual, to what degree, right? And that is varying for many staff members. And so that's really what the state is trying to calibrate, and what we are why we signed up in Milford, so that we can calibrate that internally, so that we can provide the best services to families. But to answer your question, there's a variety of staff members who say they're bilingual. To what degree is not yet calibrated within our information database.
So I think that's definitely fair. And I was just kind of curious about that, and kind of leading into, I think, what I had brought up before, trying to remember exactly what I was asked about then. But I know there's been situations where you'll have a general education teacher who might also have the ELL or ESL teaching certification, might also be fully certified as a special educator, and now we have one individual in a room of 25 students who needs to meet the needs of all the kids. I'm just wondering, how much is that happening? Like what you were saying about milestones, I actually coincidentally was in that classroom this week doing an observation for my own reasons, and there's 2 sections of milestones classrooms, but only one special educator. And now thinking about, we also have students who might need ELL supports. I'm just wondering, capacity-wise, how much are we asking, I guess, our teachers to be in multiple roles, or do you feel that, I know you mentioned a couple spots where we're, going to need more teachers. What does it look? I don't want to burn out our teachers, I guess is what I'm getting at.
No,
so that's what
me
I'm
neither.
kind of wondering, what our capacity looks like, and how many situations are we saying this class is fine because the general educator happens to be dual licensed, as opposed to we are putting appropriate support in the rooms.
Past practice, we used to try to utilize teachers who were duly certified to provide the instruction. We are not doing that. We're not doing that anywhere in our district anymore. Also, one other thing, for full transparency, the Department of Education has shifted their language on the amount of required ELD hours, right? It's out written suggested / recommended. If your district is making adequate progress toward proficiency, then you're doing the right by kids. They can't say, oh, you need more hours when your kids are making the progress they're supposed to be making under our instruction. So they change their language. We are meeting that progress target at our K-5 level. We are not at the secondary level. And you'll see that in our TFM findings. You'll see a lot of action items around that. So at the K-5 level, we are hitting the programming hours that we see our students need in the instruction areas that they need, specifically focusing on ELD and the ELA content areas, right? Whether a teacher is duly certified, the general education homeroom teacher is duly certified or not, they get the same exact push in co-teaching than a teacher who is not licensed. That's true K-5.
Okay.
6 to 12 programming is different because of the bell schedule and proficiency levels, but at the K-5 level, there's no duly certified teacher who's teaching Singleton.
Sounds good.
Anyone else?
Just thank you very much for coming in for the
thanks.
update. It's always appreciated. It tells the tale of the development of the Milford Public Schools and things that what we need to do and focus on budget-wise, so, from your department. So appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
And giving us this information.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Take care, guys. Happy holidays.
We'll go on to the SEL program update next.
No, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Stacia Copeland, for those of you who have not met me before, the new SEL director here. All right, so SEL district-wide, K through 2 schools are engaging in responsive classroom. They engage in components of the morning meeting for their students. The SEL committees across district have been meeting since the beginning of the school year, so they meet once a month. And every school in the district is at a different place where SEL is concerned, but the committees are setting goals and are working towards those goals. Stacy Middle School is engaged in the extended homeroom practice for SEL, and this is on Wednesdays. Or district-wide social workers, which are Anita and Talita, since the beginning of the year, have engaged in consultation on 219 different students across the district, and has engaged in multiple consultations, a mix of family, student consultations with staff, with community partners to provide services for the students and families that are in need. They have made 50 referrals so far this year, and the referrals are a mix of health services, needs for clothing, medical support in terms of insurance, housing, benefits, etc. They have been involved in 2 Riverside referrals this year so far, and a number of DCF consultation and involvement across the district for at least 27 students. They also participate in the monthly MTSS consultation meetings at each schools, where they will sit and, make recommendations or listen and support the school leaders and the team. They have been engaged in the 4 to 6 weeks newcomer group for students at Brookside and Woodland, and Memorial will start after the break. They participate in the monthly area meetings. That's the community meetings that I run. Lisa used to run those. And they are also actively in the bi-weekly counseling meetings that I run with the counselors, and providing supports and providing consultations and help with cases that might come up. Talita, who is here at the high school, also supports with some student counseling when the need comes up for the high school. And both her and Anita provide the weekly supervision for the interns that we have in the district. The WEAVE program continues. This is a program that you know of from Lisa's time. It continues. Woodland and Brookside, that was engaged this term. And Memorial, like I said previously, will begin after the break. And both Anita and Talita run these programs. And so they just wrapped up the planning process for Memorial. The Memorial School will be a little bit modified from what Woodland and Brookside received. And if you click on the link at the bottom there, the hyperlink, you will see some of the photos and some of the updates that came out of this terms. The next slide is just pictures really of these programs, and you'll see where both Anita and Talita are engaging in this. And I forgive me, I don't remember the police officer's name right now. Still learning their names, who comes in with his therapy dog to provide support for these students. This next slide is just a presentation of how the district social workers internship is going, and each time they have a different topic that they support their interns with. And this one is just a picture of one of our school psychologists, Colleen Hughes Paterner, presenting on the role of a school psych. And the next slide just gives you the names of our interns that we have this year, and the collaboration with the colleges and which schools they are attached to. At Stacy and the high school, the Bridges Intervention Program is still active and doing well. This program really just provides trauma-informed clinical support for the students that are really in need of this support. And then we have the Bridges Classroom, which is a Tier 2 general education support that provides the emotional and academic support within the school block. At Stacy Middle School, the Bridges teachers are Michael, who is the clinician, and Fiona, who is the teacher. The high school, you have Eliza and Brian and Jason, and then you have Molly and Michaela as the assistants there. Stacy Middle School currently has 7 students in the Bridges program and 5 students in the Bridges Classroom intervention, and there's one referral for classroom and 1 referral for intervention coming up. And then the high school, there are currently 18 students in the program. 14 students are in the Bridges Classroom, with 2 more students who are expected to begin after the break, and then there are 4 program students. The Pediatric Behavioral Health Urgent Care Collaboration, this has been going on for 3 years now. So they're at the end of their collaboration with Milford Schools, with at least the middle school and high school. And this came about as a result of a grant that Lisa had written back when she was here. And so they provide the students grades 6 through 12 the goal of it is to provide improved access in a timely manner. There has been some hurdles over the years. As we know, folks are short, providers are short, but there has been some success with this program for the students. And currently, this year, there has been 18 referrals for students, and there are 22 active cases. And the last slide is really just a continued show of the community resources and the partnerships that continue to exist within the district.
Thank you very much.
Questions?
Questions or comments from anyone? Robin?
A couple questions. Thank you for the presentation. I actually just sent you a request. I wasn't able to get access to the Weave update, so afterwards you'll probably see an email from me pop up in your box just asking for access for that. So just so you know. I was curious, the extended homeroom at Stacy, what does that look like? Do you know what type of activities they're doing?
So they address different monthly topics around social emotional learning. It's a middle school, so they, over this past summer, a couple of the staff had put together a curriculum, so they actually do use a specific curriculum that addresses different things that the students might face at that level.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my second question was about one of the last things you talked about, the pediatric behavioral health urgent care. So I just want to hear a little bit more about that. So do we partner with a certain physician's office, or how does that work?
No, we have two clinicians that come in. So they come in 2 days a week at Stacy and 2 days a week here at the high school. And they basically just provide wraparound services for the students who are referred, who might be going through mental health crises. They also support with family connections. They support a lot with some students who are having attendance issues, and so they try to make that school-home connection.
So for that program, are the students typically referred by school staff, or is that something if, say, a parent was like looking and didn't know how to get help for
No,
their kid?
they're
they could-
typically referred by school staff.
Okay.
And so the out of the monthly counseling meetings or MTSS or a school adjustment counselor might send an email and say, can we talk about a student? We'll talk about the student. So those students would also be receiving counseling service within the schools. So they just add that additional wraparound.
So if a parent
for
were to
them.
call the school and said, like, I need help for my kid, they wouldn't necessarily refer them right to this?
Well, they would have
Okay.
called one of these, maybe a AP or one of the counselors here, and if, when we talk about it, if we feel that this student would be a referral for PUC, then that student
Okay.
can get it.
Sounds
Yeah.
good, thank you.
You can go first, Megan.
I was gonna say, it's been a busy few months, so we're glad to have you. Thanks for all the important work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question. So you just mentioned it now, with it seems like there's an increase in mental health issues among students. Is there any particular trend as to why we're seeing an increase in mental health issues, and is there anything as a district that we can do to address those issues as a preventive as opposed to reactive measure?
Sure. There are trends, definitely. Mostly in the social emotional sense, a lot of the trend we're seeing with the younger kids, K through 2, really. Just not being able to control their emotions. I think it's stemming from, it's still a residue of the pandemic, and kids not being able to socialize as the typical way we had grown up socializing.
Sure.
And just not being exposed to the long daily structure of school. So that we're seeing a lot of that in the K2 schools. What can we do, you say, as a district to support that? One of the things is really supporting play in the learning, supporting social emotional lessons during like structured time.
Sure.
I think one of the barriers we face doing that right now is scheduling. So that is something we're all working on as a district. That's my observation. That's what we're actively doing with school administrators. For the older kids, like middle school students, I see some of the issues being around school attendance or whatever, right? I think that we're also working really well as a district to support that. We're talking about it.
Sure.
We're coming up with strategies and making plans for that. Hopefully that answers
It does.
your
Yeah, it's a
asking.
very complicated question with a complicated response, but thank you so much for that.
Nice to meet you. So
Thank you.
appreciate that, you being here and presenting. I guess on Mr. Richter's kind of point of what's going on district-wide, I know we've had a big SEL focus, right? And I guess, some of the things for the district-wide programs, and I know that you don't have everything at your fingertips, but maybe to provide us, what's going on at those morning meetings that you were saying, and what are the teachers providing and the strategies and stuff like that. So I guess, kind of what is being taught and what strategies,
So-
from a general standpoint, and if you could provide with that to us.
In the morning meetings, it's just really around greetings, feeling welcomed, feeling that you're a part of a family, providing a safe space for the students. So it's just to set the tone of the day for the students, where you can talk about what happened last night, you know, or just sharing some good news, stuff like that. Teachers are also displaying student work on bulletin board. That's a part of the responsive classroom method as well. So,
There's a lot of different topics.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I was curious too, is, you know, we talk about student stress, right? And I guess some of the, again, the strategies that are being utilized there too. Again, and not that I expect a full comprehensive answer, but, you know, just if any types of things that we could see kind of, and how that's being taught, you know, I think would be kind of beneficial overall to understand what the strategies and how the development of the SEL department has been going. I hope that,
Yeah.
Craig's
so
looking at me with a kind of,
counsel- go ahead.
go ahead.
So in terms of stress and stuff like that, counselors work with the classrooms as well to initiate or help students use coping strategies, stuff like deep breathing or counting to 10, or you use, they provide students sometimes with fidgets to help them de-stress. If I'm understanding what you're asking.
Yeah, and each
Is
grade
there a
level is going to be
specific
very different. You know,
curriculum?
how the strategies you're going to approach a second grader compared to a 10th or 11th
So-
grader are going to be far different. So I guess how that all breaks down, you know, and you know what truly is available for strategies and what, you know, what we can provide. Second grade is more from you know, working with children to coping skills, and we're still going to do that at 10th and 11th, 12th grade, but it's a different set of
Right, it's
of-
gonna
of-
look
of
different
approach to it.
for
Yeah.
second grade as opposed
Yeah.
to high school. What we don't specifically have in the district, maybe I can answer it from that lens. So we do look at the CASEL standards, but counselors work with students looking at zones of regulations where they can identify their feelings and stuff like that. If what we don't have across district is a specific curriculum. So that is missing. So when you ask what are different strategies or lessons, those are self-created right now. There's no specific curriculum that the district is
That's
using.
the key word that I was looking for.
And
that you
there
couldn't
is
get, curriculum,
also
yeah.
no specific screeners that the district is using. So looking ahead, those are things that we would need to put in place. And I'm using this year, my first year, to kind of audit all the things that we need, right? So there are things happening now and it's working for students, but there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of SEL. And it is, as you know, a strategic number 3 in the district plan. So we have to align everything curriculum-wise to that.
That answers my question when you said curriculum. That's the key word that I couldn't get out and was trying to articulate. So I know I appreciate that. Yes, and then shifting gears, Bridges program. That was something I can't remember how long ago that we put that in. I'm looking over
Yeah,
you, Megan,
I
because
think
you're
it
usually
was
pretty
the
good.
year before, yeah.
So, and I know it was a pretty significant investment. So far, in your short time, you know, how are you seeing that program, and do you see it being still continuing to be successful?
I do. I think it's successful at Stacy, and I think it is successful at the high school. I've seen where, when referrals are made, I see how thoughtful the counselors and the APs think it through to making referrals for these students. I think it's a successful program, and I think continuing it will be successful.
Excellent, great, thank you, appreciate it.
Sorry, I just have one more question. Chris made me think of something when, and actually your response about the screeners was what made me think of it. Do we have anything in place for, I'm thinking like risk. So I know
Training of what?
of different types of risk. Like, do we do any type of suicide prevention or anything like that at the high school, or what does that look like at the?
We do. We had, I know before Lisa left, a number of counselors were trained.
Mhm.
And when I came in August or early September, we had a training. Amy Leone came and did a training with all our guidance counselors, our adjustment counselors, and school psychs around that. So they are using tools for suicide assessment.
And I apologize because I know this is kind of like a taboo question, but would we ever consider doing training for the teachers around that? Or is that something that we don't feel like is the right place right now?
Around suicide prevention? Well, I think you need, I think, and don't quote me 100% in this, but it's clinicians that are typically trained on
Listen.
those.
Unless you're talking about maybe looking for signs.
So what
Like a
I'm saying is,
checklist?
as a child is typically, they're not going to know the counselor. If
Right.
they're a kid who's under the radar, they're going to know their teacher. So we want teachers
So
to be aware
just
of signs.
These are the
that's all I'm
signs
wondering.
and refer them to clinicians.
Right, but I think that would be like a bigger discussion. The reason why I say that, I think the clinicians have that deeper training to really know if a word or a picture really means something. And when a teacher sees something like that, like a drawing, they know to reach out to the clinicians or the building administrators. So I wouldn't say there is, if this is, not putting words in your head or anything like that, if this is your thought, that might be missed.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the teachers would know to bring that to somebody else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
they
things
do
like
know.
that.
I think
Okay.
that like district-wide training or beginning of the year training, teachers do know.
Okay.
And they know their avenues
Okay.
to tread.
Okay.
If that
Sounds
makes
good.
sense.
Yeah, I was just curious. I feel like that's just not something we bring up often, so I thought, I apologize for putting you on the spot, but I just thought this was a good
No,
opportunity to
it's-
ask about it. Okay, thanks.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Happy holidays. We will move on to policy adoption. There are 5 listed, but we're only working on 2 tonight. So we're passing over the sex discrimination, sexual harassment, and non-discrimination policies right now. So we will start with the first one, file JIE for pregnancy. We'll have a discussion on that if anyone has anything. We'll also, I guess, look to the policy folks to give some sort of recommendation on this. I know you guys did you just meet on this
Yeah, we did.
tonight? Okay. Anything of note? These were all driven by legal, I believe, right?
So the first one we're going to talk about was, the second was actually, Ms. Copeland made the edits to the bullying policy. So this first one, though, was driven from Felicia from legal. And my understanding was that there has not been any pregnancy policies prior to that. And this is really designed to protect students against discrimination
Okay,
for being pregnant or having any pregnancy-related conditions.
got it. All right, any discussion on that?
Yeah, this policy was from the MASC, pretty
Mhm.
much.
My
From
understanding
their
is pretty
template.
because it was from
It's
what the legal team
right.
suggested.
So, perfect.
Okay. If there's no discussion, we can move on to the action part, which would be looking for a motion to approve file JIE pregnancy.
No motion.
Motion by Brendan,
Second?
second by Chris. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, that brings us to, hold on, notes. Brings us to the last one tonight, which is file ACE for bullying prevention. And again, Robin just noted that that was updated by our SEL director.
Yes, and just another comment about that. So
Please.
the red comments that, or the red language you'll see were the updates that the SEL director had made. One other edit to it, though, was that our old bullying policy had an extensive amount of procedure in it. So it was a request of the policy committee that this be a policy, and then we would assume that the procedure would be found in the various school handbooks. So this would just be policy, and then the procedure would be separate.
Excellent.
Yeah, because those procedures already exist in the school handbooks, right?
Yeah, likely it would need to be updated because it would be, right now, I believe the procedure maps on what just the old policy was, so they might want to update it, but yes, essentially.
Any other discussion? See none, so we'll move on to action. We're looking for a motion to approve file ACE bullying prevention policy. Motion by Megan. Second by Robin. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. We will move on to report of the school business administrator, which
Oh,
I'm
that's
guessing
me.
is on you today.
All right. Okay. All right. In your packet, you have the budget update, which is just for your information only. And then we have 2 out-of-state travel requests that do require a vote. The first is an out-of-state travel request for the high school cheerleaders to travel to the AmeriCheer Nationals, which is in Orlando, Florida. The dates of that is are Wednesday, March 12th through Monday, March 17th.
So moved to approve.
Motion by Chris to approve out-of-state travel for the MHS cheerleaders. Is there a second?
I have a quick question too.
A second by John. Discussion. Go ahead.
Do the cheerleaders pay their roadway, or how does that work?
You know what? I'm not sure. I believe they do. Or they fundraise.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that also.
Okay.
They do a lot of fundraising to offset the costs, personally.
Any more discussion? See none. So we had a motion by Chris, second by John. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
The second out-of-state travel request is for Dr. McIntyre to attend the AASA, which is the superintendent's, I don't know what it means. It's the superintendent's group. It's the national conference on education, and that's in New Orleans. That's March 5th through March 8th.
All right. Is there a motion to? Sorry, does anybody have any questions on that or comments?
Go ahead, Megan.
I was gonna say if he stays a few extra days, he could watch the cheer competition.
Different state.
A little bit of a drive, but
What?
Louisiana.
Oh, I thought they were.
I'm pretty sure they only do
too fast.
cheerleading.
A little bit of a
I
drive,
read that
that's
too
all.
fast.
They
that's
only do
all.
LA,
cheerleading.
not
in
F-
I saw
LA.
Orleans and Orlando, and
Yeah.
I'm tired. So there. Sorry, Chris. I didn't have an accent.
That's all right. No worries. I guess, yeah, quickly, this is something that was discussed back during contract negotiation time. If my memory serves me correctly, can anybody elaborate on that?
Yeah, I mean the minutes were released when we discussed contract back on 7/25 after giving the superintendent his review. The terms that we agreed upon were, I believe, a 3.5% raise and this travel.
It was the travel, okay, yeah. All right, so we had already approved it. This is more, we approved going to the conference. This is more because it's an out-of-state request.
Yes, that's right.
So just for clarity, my own self-clarity.
Yep.
All right.
All right.
And we've approved it every year prior.
We have, yeah. All right, motion to accept the travel for the superintendent to New Orleans. Motion by Brendan, second by Robin. All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. I have a couple things prior to reading off the motion for this. Number one, the personnel update ended up in the consent agenda. It's there, does not have to be voted on, so it will not be included in the consent agenda piece. And then I have 2 gifts. I was just gonna let you know what they are separately, and then we'll do the actual motion. So, one gift is from NFPA Action Challenge. It's $488.50 for Fluid Power Challenge. I have no idea what that is, other than it's some sort of movement program. But thank you for that. And then there's also a $2,000 gift from the Order Sons of Italy in America, Milford Lodge 1356, and that is for the Italian program. So, just wanted to call those out separately. So I'll make the motion now, I'll look for the motion to approve the following 4 items. It would be the approval of the warrant, which includes 8 individual warrants totaling $1,788,725.71. The approval of minutes from the December 5th, 2024 regular session. Acceptance of gifts totaling $2,488.50. And the acceptance of grants for December totaling $88,674.
Make a
Motion
then.
by Megan, second by John, all in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
Matt, can I have a quick question about the personnel update? I know we weren't
Yeah.
voting on that. Craig, do you happen to know, I saw that one, I didn't know if it's like 3 different stipends, but grant oversight and coordination is listed 3 times for the same person? I didn't know if it was like 3 different.
Different grants.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Subcommittee updates.
Oh, yes. All right, a couple of them. First one, which we actually kind of went over, was Monday, the 16th. Facilities Subcommittee met, we reviewed the MSBA submissions, and we talked a little bit of, so with that, and obviously we talked about it more tonight. So there really wasn't much more there other than we just gave our feedback at that time. And then also we briefly talked about the Stacy Heat update, just because it technically wasn't on our agenda, but because it was such a pressing issue, Carlos gave us a update on that. I guess easily enough to say, you know, we updated the boilers. We didn't, that part of that update wasn't the control systems. Control systems are your thermostats, right? So those thermostats, which are an older system, which are pneumatic, those failed in certain classrooms. So Carlos is working on fixing that. So that is the issue. So even though that we have a Cadillac of a $1.2 million boiler down there, the control sequence is not up to that same, you know, newness to it. So I asked Carlos to let's start looking at the controls and getting some numbers together and put it on our capital plan, because obviously Stacy Middle School is not going away anywhere time soon, and if we've just invested in the boilers, let's look at investing into those controls. So he was a little bit nervous about the number. I told him not to be nervous about the number, that we just simply need to know. So that it was important for us to fully understand the scope of the upgrade. So hopefully we'll get that in the next few months, but that is the main part of the issue that's going on there. So from the control side, has nothing to do with the new boilers that were installed. The new boilers are up and running good. Again, it's controls.
Is there something that can be done, Chris, in the
Yeah,
interim? Just, it's December, so I'm sensitive to, as we head into winter, sort of what the options might be.
Yeah, so the controls are pneumatic. Pneumatic means it runs on pressure. There was a compressor that provides the pressure, to my understanding, that, correct me if I'm wrong, that compressor failed.
Got
So
it.
therefore,
Okay.
the lines didn't have pressure, therefore the fact that the controls, the thermostats, did not have the ability to send a signal from
Gotcha.
the classroom down to the boiler to send heat.
So the compressor can be fixed in the interim.
Correct.
Okay, that's
Yes,
thank you.
yeah, it's
Sorry.
my
When you said a
understanding
few
that's what
months,
Carlos-
I got a little, got it.
No, a
That's
few
helpful.
months as far as
Understood,
getting
the
a
controls
price
themselves.
for the controls.
Understood.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
if
thank
that was
you. Okay.
unclear, thank you.
That's
for
all right, I just wanted to
the
make sure I
clarity.
was,
Yep.
thanks.
I'd also, before you, I'd gathered from a computer guy standpoint, trying to follow Carlos when he was talking about those controls, which was not always right in line. There was obviously some concern about how the system in general was designed back in the day, and he was talking a lot about air getting caught in places too, where they had to bleed out different
Yeah.
pieces. So I don't know that it's as simple as flipping a compressor and it's all perfectly fine again. But I know that I think he literally ran from Stacy here, met us for 45 minutes and then disappeared again back there. And I was just going to add too that working with Dr. McIntyre to try to get the facility subcommittee to maybe go walk around Stacy too and kind of get a visual on what we're looking at. To Chris's point, he was very, I think, clear that even though it sounds like it could be very expensive, we have a reason to spend this money, and
Sure.
we need to know so that we can go to FinCom and plan this out for sooner than later. So.
Yeah, I guess my two questions are, one, with that compressor, what is the timeline for that to get
Mhm.
potentially fixed or replaced?
I don't know. Again,
Yeah.
when we saw Carlos, he was working on the fix.
He actually
so-
had the wrench in his hand, probably.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Got it. And the second question, to your point, Matt, in addition to the building subcommittee, could other members also be able to walk around the buildings and get a little bit more of that insight that you're able to obtain too?
Absolutely, yeah. I can check in with Dr. McIntyre, see when he's going to schedule that. We're hoping for something soon. I don't know if it's going to happen tomorrow or
Yeah,
next
that's
week, but
fine.
we'll see what we can do. And I'll let you know.
Thank you.
All right, John.
Yeah, I just want to point out a couple of things. I'm looking to walk around that school sooner than later. I know Dr. McIntyre has a pretty busy schedule. I'd be glad to walk through with just Carlos, and I convey that via email. And also, what's come to light because of a problem is information that we've been repeatedly asking for, some kind of a report. It can be more vague to start and more detailed as months go on or years go on even. But we're not getting this yet. We pointed that out last meeting, and that's something that we're looking for. I mean, as a subcommittee and as a full committee, we need to know what, the conditions, what the problems are. We know there's problems, but document them. Tell us what they are. We can't help solve them without being aware of them. So, I missed, I had some car problems. I missed the subcommittee meeting on Monday, but this is something we need to press the facilities director and the superintendent to provide to us as a committee.
Anything else on that?
Not on that one.
Next.
Labor and management. Do you want me to give?
Go for it, Chris.
All right,
Great, thank you.
No problem. So, labor and management met yesterday, the 18th. So a few things that came from that. We'll go school by school. Shining Star need to fix a trip hazard on the playground, so it is a safety issue. They have proclaimed that they've mentioned this numerous times, and it's just hasn't been getting fixed. So I'll bring it up to everybody here. So from that standpoint, Memorial, some stairs that need fixing. There's a trip hazard with that. I guess one teacher did trip. Wasn't injured, but it just showed the fact that it does need to be addressed. One of the bigger things is a mice rodent issue, continuing, ongoing, and staff would like communication on a plan of how things are going to be resolved. Also, just an unbalanced heat load in the building. Whenever I say unbalanced, one room's warm, one room's cold. So no different than we're seeing at a lot of our buildings. So that's at Memorial. Brookside, ongoing roach problem. So although it's been, I'll jump ahead saying the major pest problem that we saw at Woodland after a treatment over Thanksgiving, that has been rectified, but we're still seeing it at Brookside. So again, more communication needed from administration to just know what the plan's going to be on how we're going to resolve that. I'm presuming over vacation time frame, but maybe we can looking over at you, Craig, is if you do find out with Kevin not here, you can let the rest of the committee know that a plan of maybe some type of appropriate fumigation is going to happen over the break time. Also, Brookside, unbalanced heat throughout the building. One classroom's hot, another classroom's cold. Going back to Woodland, like I said, the pest improvement's is better. They're just having some inconsistencies in the night cleaning. So just mentioning it for us to know about. Stacy, obviously we heard about the major heating system problem. We talked about the fact that it's the boilers are new, but it's the control system, and asked Carlos to include that in the capital plan for redoing that. MHS, there was no one there to report, so no representatives, so nothing was there. So overall, there was a concern that tickets were being ignored and basically affecting morale. That's the feedback that we're getting from the team that met for the labor and management. So we feel like we need to better communicate to staff on these plans and what is going to happen from our facilities department, in resolving some of these problems. And Meg, appreciate Meg was on the call listening in and had a great idea of let's make sure that we're tying in the meeting notes with the maintenance requests. So if they're bringing this up in the labor and management meetings, let's find out exactly when, if, when, and where they've put in these maintenance requests, so that way we can tie the two together and talk to it very specifically. So appreciate that input. I think that's something that very easily can be implemented, and it's gonna be a great way to track what faculty is saying is a problem, and how and when it's being addressed. So, yes.
What school was the tickets? All schools?
Pretty much all schools. I think particularly it was,
Is it just that there's no feedback?
I think so. Yeah, that they're just finding that they put in a ticket and,
Maybe it's addressed.
you know,
maybe it's not.
they're not sure if it's been addressed or not. Yeah,
Okay.
you know, or someone comes in and says, yep, you're all good, and then kind of bolts out. So again, it's just, I think it's
Do they
a
document that
communication.
when they close the tickets? I mean, is that something that the teacher can see or staff member?
I'm not sure.
I think sometimes it's uncertainty though, like someone voices a concern and they don't know if a ticket was entered, and then the person that entered the
Exactly.
ticket's someone else. So I think maybe
So-
just general communication
So I
would
think-
go a long way.
I guess this is something that I think we've talked about. It's, we've got 3 maintenance folks and they're just going around and hitting tickets, and what they can't do is sit and then give the feedback.
Mhm.
I think that's where it's tricky, because do we want them to do the feedback, or do we want them to actually solve the problems? And I don't know.
What I would say, Craig, at least in my opinion, Chris, the issues that are coming up in this meeting, maybe,
Okay.
let's say there's 10, maybe there's a way to get an update on those 10 for the meeting. So there's communication on the ones specifically they've asked about, not
Okay.
all 300 or 3,000 in the system, just to provide that closure of the issues that are getting raised.
Yeah, but this question's been
Go ahead.
going on. We've been asking, as a facility subcommittee, for some kind of report on a summary of all the tickets or you know, one line, whatever they can print out of their system, and which ones are open and which ones were closed. This goes back half a year, if not a year from now, and we make the request, we get nothing. It just seems to be standard procedure.
I'll just add, I've said this in the facilities subcommittee, because this specific thing bugs me maybe more than others, because realistically, my day job compared to what the facilities group's just the same thing. They just use wrenches and I use a keyboard. But part of my process is figure out the problem, address the problem, document it, and closing a ticket before you move on to the next one. I know that people see that as a slowdown, or they can't get to the next issue one after the other. But if we don't document it, then we can't find patterns. We can't figure out that half of Stacy's pneumatic controls aren't working because we don't have a clear pattern showing up. And one of the things that I talked about in the facilities subcommittee is, if the problem is technology, then maybe we need to get these guys hotspots and iPads or something, so when they're done with the job, they can take the 3 seconds it takes to hit the Siri button, speak into it to say what they did, close the ticket, because I have yet to see a ticketing system where if you close it, it just sends you an email that says ticket closed.
Yeah.
Resolution is almost always part of what happened, and I think if a staff member sees that they opened a ticket and 2 days later in their inbox it says closed and I changed X, Y, and Z, or this is what I found and this is what I fixed, they're going to feel like they're getting communicated. And if it's just simply closed because they did the work and they closed it, I mean, for some of us, that's good enough, right? We believe that they did what they're supposed to, and they did the right thing, but for others, that's not really the communication. So, I guess we'll keep driving for the ticket information, trying to find the trends. And the other reason why this is very important, and I know this is really why John is, and Chris has really pushed for this in the facilities subcommittee, is if we're going to ask for more people, we have to have the data to back up why we're asking for more people. We can see Carlos and his team running around like mad doing a bunch of stuff, and I hear a lot from the people I do know in the district about how much they do. But just saying, trust me, I know they do a lot, we need more people, is not going to be enough, I don't think, to hire more people in a tighter budget season. So there's a lot of reasons why this information is important, even if it slows them down by a fraction of
Got it.
their time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, if we didn't have an in-house maintenance team, we had this outsourced to a vendor or various vendors, we'd have either official reports or unofficial based on invoices of every single thing that was done. We'd know what was done in every one of these buildings. We have no idea now. To your point, we added maintenance staff. I've been asking for reports of, give me a sense of what they did. I don't want their hour-to-hour, day-by-day things. Tell me that they did give me a summary of what they did at each building, what we did in-house and why we have them in-house. And, I mean, as you guys both know, we haven't gotten anything yet, and it's not a new request, it's a repeated request. So to say I'm frustrated is an understatement.
Thanks.
All right. You got more?
I don't want, oh, no need to pile it on, just, John, again.
I didn't know if you
Yes,
had
yeah,
any
just
other
quickly,
subcommittees you're in.
Yeah, oh, no, let me see, what else do I have? No, that was, yeah, just, again, tying everything together, communicate, and again, we're just, you know, I completely agree with John, we're pushing for information, we're just not getting it.
All right. All right. I think that wraps. You do have something. That's right. You guys met tonight.
Policy
Sorry,
minutes.
go.
Just very, very briefly. So
Yep.
policy met tonight. We reviewed the 2 policies that we talked about here today, and then 3 other non-discrimination policies that we just want to get a little bit more information on before we bring them to the full committee.
Great. Thank you. All right. Now I think we can move on to future agenda items. I did note down member walkthroughs on Stacy, especially to understand this heat problem, if we can do that. Anything else for future agenda items?
I'm gonna put on there just, yeah, let's continue the discussion of facilities and a facilities report, right? And
Got
I
it.
think that, you know, so the other members that are looking at us, you know, saying, well, where is it, guys? You know, so, you know, we're pushing for a report, and I think that, you know, we need to be able to talk about it publicly and be able to push for that. Be one, and then the other, as we get into budget season, I know this, something I brought up is, I'd like to entertain the discussion of making our superintendent goals based on the budget. So let's go through the budget process, set the budget, and then late springtime try to get our goals for the superintendent. So that way, leading into the school year, when it starts, or the financial year starts on July 1st and the school year starts September 1st, there are clear goals to start the school year with. Like this year, we approved goals for the school year in November. Well, the school year's already started, you know, 8-10 weeks in. So I think it would be best for our committee to set expectations late spring before the school year starts. And those expectations can also be driven off of our budget.
All right, I'm just going to note that down. I'm not to discuss it, but I think that's a fantastic idea, because one thing I would like to see us do is wrap up the school year in the school year.
Yeah.
We give that review
Yeah.
and move on.
Yeah,
as
and I know
close
we
as
have a lot
possible.
going on
So,
in the spring because of school improvement plans, so
Sure.
hopefully we can kind of get them in there.
all right, any more for that? No? All right, thank you very much. That brings us to adjournment now. We do have 2 executive sessions to discuss tonight. The first being the AFSCME clerical contract negotiations, and second is superintendent contract negotiation strategy. We will not be returning to open session. I'll start with a roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm also a yes. Thank you and good night.